If you love movies, you're here the right place, and that place is here at the Chronicle, the official film podcast of the People's Movies. Welcome back, and this is episode 52 of the podcast. I am Paul, I'm your host, I'm also the main editor of the People's Movies. I have a co-host with me, and that's Nick Bartlett. How are you, Nick?
Hi, Paul. Yeah, very good, thank you.
Thank you. And Nick, we're going to do a special episode on film noir, as obviously you've been speaking to me about it. You're a big fan of film noir, and so am I.
Yeah, I've just been absolutely immersing myself in film noir the last week or so.
And so have I as well. So, folks, we're going to do a couple of them. There's loads that we can review. What we might do, Nick, if it's up to you, we might in the future we'll maybe do a few more episodes, maybe do a season or something like that. So, for episode 52, folks, we're going to do film noir. So, folks, we're going to talk about film noir here, and what a wide array film noir. I mean, you've got so many subgenres, new genres, neo noir, which Nick, we may do in a future episode, or maybe write something on the website. Shall we talk about probably one of our favourites? I know it's one of my favourites, and I've just recently watched it, and that's the John Huston's Asphalt Jungle. The other films that we're talking about, ladies and gents, boys, girls, is they are films that we call underrated. This one, and I think you'll agree with me, Nick, it's not necessarily underrated, it's just underappreciated. Which is
Yeah, I think
sort
we,
of,
we talked about it before, didn't we? We said that there's sort of different tiers of with film noir in terms of the recognition they get, and there's some that I think anyone who sort of knows anything about films will sort of recognize the names, like the Maltese Falcon and the Big Sleep and stuff like that. And then there's others where it's like if you take a sort of passing interest in film noir, you'll be aware of it. I think Asphalt Jungle is one of those. It's not that obscure, but it's like if you're sort of if you know your films, you will have heard of it at least once, I reckon.
yeah, you definitely, because as I said, it's a very highly regarded movie, not just in film noir, but also the heist movies. It's a very, it was a, is it made in 1950 or 1949? I can't really remember which, but around about that period. It's a very grim film, a finely drawn, the tone very finely drawn, and I think it's very grounded in realism, and it's more interested in honestly the visual sense of the film. It's very evocative, and it's in its use of the sort of cinematography, the colour, and even the production side of things. This might sound silly, Nick. This was very rare back, not just in noir films, in all films in this sort of period. I've sort of wrote 1950, 1949. It was very rare to see a lot of films actually based outside the studio sets. If you
Yeah, I was gonna say that comes up. That's gonna come up in one of the later films we're gonna talk about as well, I think. But like this is like a lot of the ones that you sort of like. I'm gonna say it again, but the Maltese Falcon, that's a great film, but that is very very set bound. It's like every scene is like in a studio setting, and it's really nice to see a film like The Asphalt Jungle where they use like go out on location and shoot like even from the opening shot where like Sterling Hayden's like trying to get away from
yeah,
hide from the police car. It's like so evidently shot on a real street. It's brilliant.
yeah, that was a scene, and even as I said, even the use of the colours as well. Right away, it felt really modern, very contemporary, well ahead of its time. I think I'm going to mention a few films where it highly influenced as well. As you said, it stars Sterling Hayden, and he was a frequent figure in film noir. I mean, he starred in The Killing, Kubrick's film for '56, Johnny Guitar, The Naked Alibi. He was even in the revisionist 1973 version of The Long Goodbye, and he was a dodgy cop in Godfather who found out off of Michael Corleone when he invites you for a bowl of pasta. End of you, if you know what I mean. So,
Yeah, Sterling Hayden's great. He was in Doctor Strangelove as well as the
yeah.
mad general who sends all the bombers out. Um, yeah,
Sorry, go
yeah,
ahead.
I think he's great in the Asphalt Jungle. Like he's obviously he's presented as like the hoodlum, right? He's just the muscle, and so everyone just assumes he's going to be like this unthinking, like just violent guy, but he's shown to like have a real like caring side to him as well. And I think it's sort of shown in his relationship with the mastermind guy, the Doc Riedenschneider,
Yeah.
and all this other stuff. It's like and yeah, I think that sort of I think he sort of embodies what I love about the Asphalt Jungle, which is I think it's maybe the best example of the sort of the inherent problem of within the Hays Code. You know, like the film noir sort of came about because like pushback against this sort of production code, which came in, which sort of meant that all the bad guys need to be punished. They can't. It was a way of like sort of stopping Hollywood showing all this stuff that was deemed like what's the word like um it's that sort of moral guidelines, wasn't it? It's like
Unmoral, immoral.
yeah. But at the same time, like if you want to make a compelling film, you need to have sort of relatable characters. So I think this is the best this is the best example of a film that sort of has to sort of thread that needle.
Yeah,
Whereas like all the people, everyone involved in the heist, none of them are allowed to get away. So you pretty much know that going in that's doomed. But at the same time, it's like you have to make them compelling and likable. So they've all got like they're all a lot more human than the sort of the law enforcement representatives who are like either corrupt or like massively like puritanical. Like none of the police are like that interesting. But like whereas the criminals are all really interesting and really compelling and it's sort of because of their weaknesses and their flaws that makes them so interesting. I think anyway. And the thing that comes across with Sterling Hayden's character is that the detectives sort of dismiss him as an idiot or like someone who's really violent and like when it's like when he's one of the few survivors, it's like he's the most dangerous one of them all, and it's like he's really not. He just wants to go look at the horses.
yeah. Which some that happens at the end comes very apparent why, And when it comes to genre movies, he was one of the big leading men, and I mean, there are guys that are in there, like your John Paynes or your Robert Ryans or your Robert Mitchums. You knew exactly what type of character they were going to be, but with Sterling Hayden, he was a bit harder to try and figure out who he was going to be. And I think that helped him because he could be the good guy, but he could also be the bad guy as well at the same time. And
I would dispute that. I would dispute you lumping in Robert Ryan with those lot because I love Robert Ryan, but I'll
yeah,
take it. I'll take your point.
I think it was more you knew what type of character he was going to play, not necessarily a villain. You knew he get very typecast, that type of thing. Hayden himself, he's quite an interesting character. Politically, he was very left wing because he did his time in World War Two. His main love was sea and boats. He served in former Yugoslavia, helping Tito's partisans. During the war, and he loved the whole setup of what was going on in Yugoslavia politically and that, and he openly became a left wing communist. So obviously, this is at the time when the McCarthy witch hunts were happening, and the witch hunters they went for him and got him. If you like to say, ratted out many fellow actors and filmmakers and writers, many he called friends, just to save his own skin. Later on, he regretted. I think it was written in his autobiography. He regretted what he actually done because it impacted him. With the films, he started doing these very low budget. He did a lot of low budget westerns and that, and it eventually became baroque. You know.
Was that okay? Well, not because he regretted like naming names or anything, just because of the impact it had on him. Then,
Yeah, the impact on him, and because he was seen as a rat in Hollywood,
yeah,
it's sort of studios were like, no, we don't want you. So
yeah.
the big studios, the smaller studios, independents, they went, this is Stellan Hayden, let's grab him, get him in a movie. And he hated these movies because really, I mean, in the old days, even here in the UK, the films just kept rolling and rolling. You would have your main movie, but you would have my mum used to tell me, you would have a newsreel, and then you have your B movie, which just a lot of times was your film noirs, unless it
Mm.
had one of and then you had your main movie. So you could walk into the cinema and it could be halfway through one of them, but you can people used to just sit right through it, watch and get back to that movie they walked in and watch right up to the
Yeah.
back where they walked. No, that was the culture. Then, it's with that as in the film Asphalt Jungle. It also starred Lewis Cairn, Sam Jeffy, who played played the Doc, Schneider, Gene Hagen, Doll, James Whitmore, who was another face of film noir. I was going to actually one of the
He
films
was
that
in. Well, James Whitmore was in obviously in Shawshank Redemption as well.
he was
He's the
indeed.
guy. He's the guy who hangs himself in that. I think
Yeah,
the whole cast is great. Like Gene Hagen, obviously from was in Singing in the Rain as well.
yeah,
And I think my favorite in it is Mark Lawrence. Like he doesn't get that much to do, but he's like the fixer who like the one who gets nervous about the money. Do you remember that? He
yeah,
gets money. He's the one who basically funds it all. And I think it's what I love about it is that it all falls apart because like all the characters have got their own like weaknesses. Like the Doc, who's Sam Jaffe, he's like he's got a lot of wandering eyes for the ladies, and that's what sort
yeah,
of trips him up at the end. And there's the guy, and yeah, and the lawyer Louis Calhern is like he gets the best line in the film, I think, where he says that something like crime is just a left-handed form of human endeavor. I
yep.
think is what he said.
You've just stole my ending line in my
Oh,
my
I'm
talk.
sorry.
No, you're all right. I was going to get mentioned anyway, so don't worry.
But
But there's two
it's like he's
others.
great. Louis Calhern is like because he was like the straight man in Duck Soup, the Marx Brothers film.
Yeah,
He's like, and he's Julius Caesar and everything. He's a proper actor. He's sort of slamming it like in
yeah,
this
very
film noir,
cakey.
but he's great.
There's another two I haven't mentioned. This was also the breakthrough movie for a certain Norma Jean, Marilyn Monroe, a very young Marilyn Monroe, who called Alonzo, that's Lewis Cairns' character, uncle, and
Yeah.
the Forgotten Magnificent Seven actor,
Oh yeah, Brad Dexter.
Brad Dexter. Yep. And there's one thing that I always do every December, and I watch the first two seasons, four in total, right through to Christmas every day. Sadly, I'm doing that with The Walking Dead. We're recording this on Saturday, the 29th November. Tomorrow, I'll finally get to the final episode of season 11, which I've been watching every day since July. So there you go. That's how long it takes to get through the whole of
Wow.
The Walking Dead. So Alvida's Input, I watch that every December. It just became a tradition. I bought it once and I thought, and it must have been just the start of December, and I watched it. In the first episode, or sorry, first and second episodes of the season two, Alvida's Input, the guys are all heading down to Derbyshire to do they do a little job. Uh, in a manor down there, and they're all stopping in a service station. They all start talking about there's seven of them, so they're all talking about who each of them would be, which Magnificent Seven. And there's one of them, Moxie. He's the guy who I forget his name, Christopher Ferris, is it?
Christopher Fairbank.
Fairbank. What are you? I'm the Batman. That guy,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
He played the Scouser Moxie, and we're going, oh, what can Moxie be? And he was a bit of an arsonist. And later on, he goes, it's Brad Dexter, and that's it. Every time somebody brings that, I always think, I'll read it, same pet, Brad Dexter. Anyway, so just to give you the listeners a little idea what the film's about, this is basically about the dual heist that all went all wrong. And it's all pulled together by the criminal mastermind, the Doc. Schneider played by Jeff. Is it Jaffe or Jeffy? I can't remember.
Sam Jaffe, yeah.
Sam Jeffy. And he gets together a group of basically we call career criminals. And one of them is obviously Dix Hanley, who's played by Sterling Hayden, and the very corrupt Alonzo, the lawyer, Simon Cullen. And they all plan together to get this. But the lawyer, Alonzo, he plans to double cross them and take the jewels himself and head off to Europe. So yeah. So as I said, this is basically a film set. What makes this slightly different for your standard, your other film noirs is this is actually set in the underbelly of the criminal underworld. It's a very gritty exploration of violence and, if you like to say, moral corruption. And as I said earlier, it's very ahead of its time because there's no femme fatale in this. There is female characters in it, but there's not really any femme fatale characters in it. And there's none of the melodrama you get in a lot of these film noirs, and there's none of this epic music. It's so, and
Yeah.
or even the you could see even the hard-boiled characters a lot of these movies had, and
It's like it's a lot. It's a sort of blend, isn't it? Because it's like of like a lot of the sort of subgenres of film noir. Because you've got like
yeah,
the heist part in there, and you've got the sort of character archetypes that are sort of known that noir is known for. But you've also got like the sort of procedurals, police procedural
yeah,
side of things, and the sort of realism that you get in something like I don't like the Naked City or something like that, where it's all about the crime or T-men, where it's just following the crime rather than the characters.
yeah,
There's a lot going on. It is brilliant.
yeah. It's and the other weird thing was about this is, and you'll know this was released by MGM Paramount, and they were renowned for your musicals and your rom-coms, and Warner Bros. That was a big place if you're doing a film noir. 'Cause this is where you found Bogart, your Edward G. Robinsons and your James Cagney's. All their films were over there. So that's probably another reason why it was underappreciated, because it was releasing something that maybe at the wrong studio. And there's another famous quote. It was from the MGM boss, Louis B. Mayer. He basically called the film trash. He said it was nasty and ugly people doing nasty things. That's what
Great.
he said about the movie. He hated it.
I mean, I feel like at the time I watched it. I remember watching it when I was younger with my grandparents, and like I remember my granddad sort of wincing at one bit because there's a line where someone says he's not got enough blood in him to keep a chicken alive, and it's
Yeah,
like oh,
yeah,
it's sort of you don't see anything, but it's just like the imagery is so like it's so horrible,
yeah.
and
And the
it's like
thing,
I feel like that as well is something that I think I don't know. I feel like I mean, I think Reservoir Dogs owes it a lot.
yeah, they do, and there's
And
a
also, but also like something like Rafifi, which came out like I think 5 years later.
yeah,
But it's like the whole heist, the fact they sort of the heist sequence is done. There's no sort of music or anything. It's just done in silence. So the only thing you hear is them like doing it. And
yeah,
then Jules Dassin was like, when he did Rafifi, he was like, okay, I'm gonna take that up a level, and just did it the whole thing in 20 minutes with no dialogue at all. And it's like, yeah, but it's all I think it all started with the Asphalt Jungle.
yeah, and it made a big impact on the French crime thrillers, even Jean-Pierre Melville, Bob Lafontaine. It
Mm,
inspired him, and Melville said this is the blueprint of heist movies, because it's
yeah.
considered the heist movie that modern movies, every movie sort of was inspired by, And the thing was, at the time, this was a commercial flop. However,
Yeah.
it got Oscar nods for the best director, the cinematography, the screenplay, and Jeffrey even got a supporting actor nod. That's not bad for a movie. It was seen as a commercial failure, even though it was I think it was a critical hit at the time. And there is three movies that are seen as total remakes of them. That's I think is it Delmer Davis's Is it Badlanders for 58, really Wilf Realis's Cairo for 1963, and there's even a black exploitation one for
All right. Okay.
1972. Cool Breeze, Barry, I think it's Barry Portitas. But as you said, Reservoir Dogs, even Ocean's 11, the Killing Kubrick's film, even the
Killing.
usual,
Yeah.
yeah, even the usual suspects and Lady Killers, they were other films which were inspired by this. And when I was writing my notes, and I was more thinking about it, yeah, I can see why. That was why it's so modern and contemporary. There's another film that I don't know if we're going to mention in this episode. We might mention it in another episode. It's that is highly inspired by Reservoir Dogs as well, but for other reasons. So this was I don't know if you agree. I think this was a film that wasn't really interested in the actual crime itself. It was
No,
more,
but I don't think the best. I think the best heist films aren't really.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
it's like I mean, Reservoir Dogs is another one where you never even see the heist in that, and it's like the ones that I like the most, are the ones that sort of focus on the characters and like what makes them sort of tick. And that there's another great. I mean, this will be for another time as well. But like, there's another one called The Odds Against Tomorrow,
Yeah,
which is an amazing film noir. But that is like the whole film is the build up to the heist. And then as soon as they do the heist, everything goes wrong immediately and they just abandon it. And it's like, well, what was the point of that? But it's
yeah.
still, I think it's still considered a heist film because of everything surrounding it, And like, I think that's what Jungle does really well. Like everyone, all the characters in there are like fully formed right from the off. Like there's James, is it James Whitmore, right? He's the sort of
Yes,
hunchback, and like he's like, but you can see right away he's like decent and he's not gonna snitch on his friends. Whereas like Cobby is the complete opposite. Mark Lawrence's character, he's like as soon as he gets leaned on at all, he just folds.
yeah.
And like, and there's the safe cracker, and it's like he just wants to go home, and
I
like it's just brilliant.
mean, as I said, it's more interested in the human emotions, the dreams that everyone wants not to have that better life, And what you see here is the people are sort of forced. You get that impression that people are forced into a sort of criminal life, and they're sort of drowning in they're sort of like the poverty, and they're sort of living in the shadows of what
Yeah,
society
like
is.
you see the safe cracker, you see his home life, don't you? And it's like he's
Yeah.
got like crying kids, and the wife is like desperate for him to, they're not doing well at all. So he has to go and go on the job, even though
Yeah.
he really doesn't want to.
And the scene that you mentioned earlier on at the beginning of the film, that's another sort of another thing about it. You can see he's already when we meet them, Dix, he's already running away for the police.
Yeah,
That type of thing. And I think another thing I liked about it is they don't mention the name of the city. However, there is clues in there it could be Cincinnati because I read in reviews that there was things that they saw the bridge and certain buildings and rivers they knew were from around the Cincinnati. But I think that made it very universal. We know
yeah,
actually naming the city to show that this poverty and desperation and the need of trying to get a happier life. It's
mm,
everywhere, and also the cinematography does help as well. It's from Harold Rawson, and Harold Rawson went on to do Singing in the Rain. So it shows it is diversity.
all right,
It's
yeah,
This was a textbook masterclass on this light and shadow thing as well. You also associate with film noir, and I think this is also you see even the close-ups of certain characters. There was a lot of close-ups of the faces and that. You know that shows you how modern and how
mm,
contemporary this movie really, really was. What I will say is, Asphalt Jungle nowadays might not be an original film, but in the day, John Huston's film was highly original. I mean, obviously, you get to see the especially the genre, the creation of the team, the execution of the job, and the chaos that comes with it, and obviously the aftermath, and obviously, as you said, the doomed. Everyone, the odds are against everyone getting to there,
mm.
and obviously, the doc trying to get to Mexico City to have fun with young girls. If you say that this day, it probably associated with somebody like a certain person that they're trying to release the files for, if you know what I mean. I don't want to mention his name
Well,
over in
he is.
America.
I don't think the film exactly glosses over it. He's quite a seedy little guy, isn't he? He's not
Yeah,
like he's sort of sympathetic, but that's just his vice, isn't it? And so like
yeah.
it makes sense. That's what trips him up in the end.
I think that's also the bit you mentioned in the jukebox for the young girl.
Yeah.
Is there any final thoughts on Asphalt Jungle before we move on?
No, I think I've said everything. I just it's like I mean I will say I know we talked about it being like one of the best heist films. A couple of years ago I wrote a big listicle on the best heist films for a different website, and this was number one by quite a mile. But yeah,
Yep, so there you have it, folks. That is Asphalt Jungle. And welcome back to episode 52 of the Chronicle Film Podcast, which just happens to be our Film Noir special. Nick, which film would you
hello.
like to talk about?
Right. Well, the film that I'm picking for my first pick is like it's not necessarily like the most famous film noir, but it's one that I really like. It's called Crisscross. It's directed by Robert Siodmak, who he made loads of film noirs, probably most famously The Killers, but also Cry of the City, Phantom Lady, The Spiral Staircase. He's very, very good. And yeah, for me, this is like purest distillation of what makes film noir great, or why I like film noir, basically. Yeah, it's so the plot. If have you seen it, Paul?
I haven't. When I look up about film noirs, it's always one that always pops up in the list. Folks, I'm not spoiling any here, and I'm not really breaking the law here. A lot of film noirs are still public domain. Occasionally, we're not doing anything illegal by saying this. Occasionally, there's certain films who are not for public domain are here, and so I watched a lot of film noirs through public domain, as in YouTube and places like that, and that's how I know the film Crisscross. I'm not saying it's on public domain, but it's one that always seems to crop up because you know yourself, Nick, when you look on YouTube, it'll bring up videos about essays and things like that, and Robert Siodmak's name always crops up in Crisscross. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I mean, he's a great director, and I mean, I would say it's also this one is also available from Eureka, Masters of Cinema,
Of course.
which is what I have. But no, it's a great film, and it's just full of all this stuff that I love about film noir. Basically, it's so the plot is it stars Burt Lancaster as who I think is like he's like one of the he's not my favorite actor,
Yeah.
but like he's got the look. His look is perfect for like a film noir protagonist. Like he's just got that like perennially like doomed
Yeah.
face. You just know that he's not going to come out of it well. But yeah, basically his role in this is he's an armored car driver who gets in over his head. Basically, he gets drawn into a heist plot because he falls for his ex-wife, who's played by Yvonne De Carlo, who draws him into like this heist which is planned by her new husband, who's played by Dan Duria, who's he's one of those actors who's in every film you see him in, he's like sleazy as hell, and he's amazing in this as well. And yeah, basically, there's an amazing heist sequence where they use like gas canisters to rob the armored car, and it all goes wrong, as with the Asphalt Jungle.
Yeah.
And before they know it, they're on the run from the police and from each other. And yeah, it's just great. Yeah, I mean, I could talk about it some more.
Yeah, go for it.
Um,
Yeah. The stage is yours.
there's a one of the things I love about film noir is the sort of walk-on parts that like like sort of cameos. And in this, there's like a whole bunch of them. Like Burt Lancaster's character like frequents this bar, and like there's the characters that sort of turn up there. Like some really colourful. Like there's someone played by Percy Hilton and Joan Miller, and they're both like these regulars at the bar, and they're just. I think Percy Hilton's the barman actually, and like yeah, their little relationship is really sweet. And they've got like a professional heist planner as well, played by Alan Napier, who's I think was Alfred in
Batman.
the Adam West Batman,
Yeah.
and he's like he comes in and plans their heist, and basically in exchange for just like liquor, and he just takes a big bottle of gin and then leaves. But yeah, and yeah, so there's this guy I follow a lot he's Eddie Muller. Have you heard of him? He's a big deal. He's a film critic and author in the US, and he's the president of the Film Noir Foundation. And he's regularly does these little intros to film noirs for like TCM and all these other channels. And he's really knowledgeable on film noir. And about this one, there's a moment in this like right at the start where like Yvonne De Carlo basically looked straight down the camera, and it's like when she's trying to sort of convince Burt Lancaster to sort of do this heist. This guy Eddie Miller described it. It said it might be film noir's defining moment, and it's like it's difficult to disagree. It's like she's a great character. She's not a stereotype. She's not like the standard femme fatale. Like she's not like Ava Gardner in The Killers or Barbara Stanwyck in Double Indemnity. It's like there's a sort of reasoning behind her that makes it difficult to sort of outright sort of condemn her. I think all the characters in this are very sort of they feel quite authentic and sort of lived in. And like so Burt Lancaster's obviously doomed, but like he sort of get his reasoning, obviously. The bad guy, Dan Duria, who's like one of my favorite actors. He was a villain in Winchester 73, and he was a villain in I think a bunch of Fritz Lang ones. So he was a baddie in The Woman in the Window and Scarlet Street. He's always great, and in this one especially, he's like a really really menacing, but he's also like complicated. I think the final shot of the film is a sort of close up of him, and it's like a really sort of conflicting moment because it's like there's I'm not going to spoil anything, but it's like he's sort of quite sad. You feel bad for him at the end, even though he's like a murderer and a horrible character. So yeah, and the heist itself is just amazing. It's like we're talking about the Asphalt Jungle. This is like the other extreme where it's all like sort of bells and whistles. You know, there's loads of loads of alarms, loads of guns, loads of like tear gas and stuff. It's a really good film, and The Killers sort of gets a lot of the attention because of its structure, which is it's all told. It's mainly The Killers is mainly told in flashback, because the story itself isn't that interesting. But this one is the plot is so well structured and so engaging that it doesn't really need any sort of structural stuff like that. It's not any narrative like moving about. It's all pretty good. Yeah, I think that might be me done. I've talked about it a while.
I'm just looking down the cast list here, and you're right about some of the cameos.
Yeah.
There is an uncredited part in this from Tony Curtis,
Oh yeah, I think
the
is he a
Gigolo.
dancer?
He's a Gigolo.
Yeah. I think at a dance club. Yeah, he's there. I read a story about that actually. I can't remember what. But anyway, yeah, no, he's great. I mean, he's not. I don't think he's got any lines, but it's like,
Yeah,
yeah, Stephen McNally is in it as well.
he is
There's
indeed. Yes.
him and Tony Curtis and Dan Juria were all in Winchester 73 together as well, which is
Yeah.
it's also this got remade by Steven Soderbergh in the I think late 80s, early 90s as the Underneath with
Ah,
Peter Gallagher and some other people whose names I can't remember. But this is suffice to say this is a lot better. But there's one scene in particular that I love in both versions. They both and Robert Stiermack and Steven Soderbergh both managed to get something different out of it. And it's when Burt Lancaster's recovering after the heist. Basically, during the heist, he decides enough is enough, and he sort of switches sides, and he gets wounded, and everyone thinks he's a big hero. And he's sort of recovering in the hospital, and there's just a guy he doesn't know, just sort of sat by him.
yeah.
And it's like it's so full of like dread, that scene in both versions, and it's like it's played differently in each one. But I think Steven Soderbergh's one might be slightly better actually. It's just like it's sort of like I don't know who you are. Are you here to kill me? Are you here to sort of check on me? Are you here to arrest me? Like there's this sort of ambiguity to it. It's really interesting. And yeah, I think that the whole film sort of suffused with that. It's like it's not as cut and dried as film noirs can be. So yeah, that's why it gets my vote.
Yeah, because it's I think because of the killers, it gets shadowed a lot
Yeah,
because obviously Robert Siodmak, Burt Lancaster, and the
yeah.
producer Mark Hellinger were all part of the killers, and they're all part of Crisscross as well. And obviously, the killers is a very influential, but Crisscross itself is seen as a critically acclaimed uh,
What I will say,
noir in its own right.
yeah, what I will say that guy, that guy I mentioned, Eddie Miller, he put this second in his list in his top 25 film noir. It's well thought of. The Killers was down at number 11, and The
Was it,
Asphalt Jungle was number 4. So you know,
was it Double Indemnity pick?
no, it's Double Indemnity was number 5. In a Lonely Place was number 1.
Ah, I forgot I've got that. I've got the
Yeah,
Criterion one.
that's another very good one.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna split hairs. But Chris Cross at number 2 is pretty. I think that's pretty good.
It is, yeah, especially for one that's very
And
appreciated.
yeah, and I
And
should say The Killers is great too. I do love The
oh yeah,
Killers.
yeah,
But I think this one is just so like it's like that one is more sort of it's a really clever sort of narrative device, you know, of constantly going. It's sort of like it's sort of like the Rashomon of like film noir,
yeah.
where you're getting different takes on different scenes, sort of thing. So it's very clever. But this is just so like drenched in just like the whole feel of noir that is like that's why I like this one more.
Some people initially said that it embraced the cliches of film noir too safe,
Mate, yeah.
and it became too predictable for some genre fans. You know, that was the initial. Obviously, as you mentioned, Eddie Miller, he's a big supporter of this film, and he's sort of one of the people, as you said, made it an archetypical noir of the classic era as well. Mark Ellinger unfortunately died during production, so obviously it left the film in a bit of limbo, creative limbo, and they actually had to force Burt Lancaster to complete the film. So there was
Oh no.
obviously, yeah, there was a lot of turbulence that affected the momentum and obviously the marketing of the film as well. I mean, and obviously it led to changes to the screenplay as well, and that as well. And as you said, Robert Cedermark is seen as one of the masters of the genre. And you mentioned quite a few films. Talking to his films, I'm sitting in front of my desk here, and I've got all my newbies, my arrows, and my criterions, and my eurekas in front of me. And the first two films I look at are The Killing and The Killers. Right above it's The Killing. Above that
All
is
right, yeah.
Bound. Above that's Rififi. And then further up, I've actually got The Dark Mirror.
Amazing.
And the big knife, the big combos there. Night of the Hunters there. Sweet Smell of Success.
All good.
Brute Force. They're all, a few others are up there. A few of the Japanese neo noirs, there as well. I mean, Ace and Holes there, the Eureka one, unbelievable. And Laura, that's there as well. It's,
Can't get away from it.
exactly. There you go. I've just seen Kiss Me Deadly, one of the classics.
That's brilliant. That's a
Uh,
really good one. That's
yeah,
that one. So I know we're not talking about it, but like that image of like I think it's Cloris Leachman. Just there's the bit with her with the pliers.
yeah.
It's just horrific. It's all just suggested. It's really nasty.
And I'm running just in down the dark road.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That and because it was all that was all to do with the sort of the fear of the nuclear bomb as well.
Yeah.
And also a lot I read the sort of Cold War was into that movie. Yeah, and as you said, it for a noir, it is still very brutal and fatalistic,
It's
and
horrible.
the ending
Yeah.
is very shocking, and for that type of movie, that's quite dark. So it goes back to the Asphalt Jungle as well, how it made at very similar tones,
Mm.
and for this, the difference was this was a mainstream film.
Yeah.
It just, so
Yeah,
it's
this is another one. This is another one that is unlike the Asphalt Jungle. This Crisscross, I think, is very studio bound. I don't think
yeah,
there's much location on this.
yeah,
I don't think it necessarily matters that much, but I mean, yeah, it depends what you're looking for, I guess.
yeah. And I apologise, folks. Yeah, I did mention YouTube, but you've just heard me mention a few distributors who do some fantastic noirs as well. And there is other distributors in the world. Anyway, is there any other noirs, anything else you'd like to mention about your film that you've just talked about?
No, I think it's just this is the one for me. This is like I mean, there's film noirs that I like more, but I think for me this is like maybe the purest distillation of what makes film noir great. And
Yeah,
yeah, it's the way it is like you said it is simple, and it is like there is a sort of economy to the plot, but it sort of comes down to whether or not it comes down to the difference between predictable and inevitable.
yeah,
There is like we all know how film noirs are generally going to end. It's not they don't
yeah.
end. They very
Mhm.
rarely have a happy ending, but it's just the journey and how it gets there. And it's like in this, it seems like the character. It's almost like the characters know that where they're going, and they just sort of accept it. And I just find it really interesting the film.
Yeah.
But yeah, there we go.
There you have it, folks. That is Crisscross. Welcome back to the Chronicle Film Podcast, episode 52. And we've got another film. We're going to do one film each, and that'll be us for this episode. So my next one is from 1951, and it's from Joseph Losey, and that's The Prowler, not the 1980s horror movie of the same name. Joseph Losey, he wrote this. He directed it. But this was actually written by one of the most famous blacklisted writers, screenwriters, James Dalton Trumbull. So he was blacklisted, all thanks to the McCarthy witch hunts, and which, as we mentioned earlier, a lot of Hollywood's actors, filmmakers, screenwriters, producers, all get witch hunted because of their alleged political leanings or their open political reasons. And a lot of times, and Trumbull himself, he get dragged in front of Congress to try and, as we said at Hayden Sterling, rat on some of his fellow friends and colleagues, which he didn't. And do you know that he actually ended up in jail for 1 year because of it, you
Oh
know,
no.
for contempt, but he got out a wee bit earlier because he was a good boy. He actually wrote 30, do you know he wrote 30 scripts under a pseudonym name?
Is this
Uh
still is this Dalton Trumbo?
yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's really prolific. But yeah,
I think it
I
was
think
Robert Reed was one of his names, and it was his friend who got the credit for this one, Hugo Butler, and he obviously made the credit for it because obviously what happened, you know. But this is the guy who went on to write Spartacus, The Roman Holiday, you know, and many many other ones, The Brave One. Blacklisted for about 47 to about 1960, and I believe it was Spartacus that sort of helped him out a little bit here. You know, Kirk Douglas had got him back onto the Writers Guild and he got him sort of cleared. This film starred another well-known name from the genre, Van Heflin. He played Webb, I think it was Webb Gammond, and Evelyn Keyes played Susan Gilvery. Garwood, sorry, Webb Garwood, the Heflin character. So Garwood, he was a disgruntled cop. He was investigating a Pete Tom. Another thing about Trumbull is in the house where he investigates, which is Susan played by sorry, Evelyn played by Susan. Susan, sorry, I'm getting these names mixed up. The radio you hear, the DJ, that's actually Trumbull. It's actually
oh,
voicing it. Yes, yes, exactly. Yeah, Garwood was actually he was like yeah, he was your sort of cop. He was a bachelor and he falls in love with Susan, who's obviously married. And the DJ on the radio was actually meant to be her husband, and it was played by I think it's Shan. It's like Sherry Hall. Very, very feminine name there. I'm sure that's his name. Obviously, like a lot of noirs, he becomes obsessed with Susan, who's this sort of young, beautiful, married woman, very lonely woman. The two of them get involved in an affair when she eventually sort of gives in to his whims. Webb, he starts to learn about Susan's husband, who he is, and the insurance. So, one of the things about this film, it reminds you a lot of Double Indemnity,
mm.
which a lot of people see as the ultimate
I
film
mean,
noir,
I would agree. I mean, there's other ones that I have. There's things I like more about other ones, but I think Double Indemnity is probably my favorite film noir in all
which
things
is
considered.
which is available on Eureka and Criterion, depending on what version you want. I don't know, I think there's any difference apart for the price. And basically, what happens is Webb was obviously a cop. The other difference is you know, in a lot of these noirs, the cops are not the uniform cops. They're not your Humphrey
Detectives.
Bogart. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's a uniform cop in this, you know. So he sets something up to make it look like the Priller's back, and obviously he's listening on his radio, and Susan calls it in. So he arrives back in official capacity. However, something may have happened in there. I'm not going to go further than that. Van Heflin, he's a big name again. I mean, he's did everything from Underworld to 19, The Black Dahlia, with
Mm.
Veronica Lake and Alan Ladd, in 46, The Strange Love of Martha Ivers, the
Yeah.
46,
He's,
which Barbara Stanwyck and Kirk Douglas went out, and it's a Joseph Losley film.
that's a weird one. The Strange Love of My
Yeah.
Thrivers. I'm not as not as fond of that one.
I think that's
This
probably,
one, yeah, go on.
I think that's probably why it's on Arrow Video. It's a bit
Yeah,
an odd one,
maybe.
and it's probably another reason why a lot of noirs are only like 60 minutes up to about an hour and 25 minutes. As I mentioned, the other difference with Asphalt Jungle, that's nearly 2 hours long, which was very unusual for noirs back then. And Crisscross, I think, was only about an hour and 30 minutes, I believe.
Yeah.
So what were you going to say
It's
next?
yeah, I've seen this one. I really like it. I always find it really weird seeing Van Heflin in a sort of villainous role because like
Hmm?
I grew up watching him in like Shane, where
Yeah,
he's just like down to earth, just the good guy, like and that like even in like something like Act of Violence. Have you seen that one?
I haven't, but I've heard of it.
That's that's a really good noir where it's like he's a war hero who comes back from the war and he's married to Janet Leigh and but Robert Ryan arrives in town and he's just like stalking him and there's something to do with their shared past in the war and like even then even though he's a bit more complicated he's got that sort of air of respectability to him
Hmm.
But as in this, he's just horrible. Like pretty much from the
Yeah.
first moment of the film. It's almost like something like there's a film called there's a film noir called Born to Kill, which has got Lawrence Tierney in it, and he's just an unapologetically horrible character. And I get the same sort of feeling from that as I do from this, where it's just like it makes you just feel like a bit unclean by the end of
Yeah.
it, you know, just spent so much time with him.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think one of the reasons why this might have slipped under the radar, one, it's a very low budget film,
yeah,
and it was actually forgotten about for many years. And that's the same with a lot of films that are underappreciated. And at one point, it was very hard to be found, you know. And I think also because it had very many subversive themes to it,
mm,
and I think also and it was appreciated by its peers as well. You know, and it's one of the films. It's not a femme fatale; it's a home fatale.
yeah,
You know,
definitely.
and
She's like everything Keys is really good in it.
yeah,
She was like John Huston's ex-wife, I
that's
think,
correct. Yes, yeah,
and that's like, and she, I think I don't know if he helped get her the right. I think I remember reading somewhere that like he not ghost produced it, but he was involved in the production. And he sort of got her the role somewhere or another, or you know, he probably got her an audition or something because
yeah,
I'm sure she's a very good actress in her own
yeah,
right. But like, it's a really good performance from her. But I think also maybe like one of the reasons it's sort of forgotten is the fact that like it's all the themes in it. There's the sort of pregnancy outside of wedlock, that sort
yeah,
of thing. But also like I think Joseph Losey was like also blacklisted, wasn't he? So it
yeah. He
wasn't
was.
like and like so that might be something to do with it. Because for some reason I always assumed he was either British or like European. Because the films that know him from are like The Servant and Mr. Klein or Monsieur Klein, stuff like that.
Yeah,
And like that's all stuff he made like while in exile, like in Europe, because he couldn't work in America. So like I wonder if that's a factor for why this one got sort of brushed under the carpet a little
yeah,
bit.
yeah. And Houston himself, he excelled himself to Ireland, where he ended up getting citizenship with Ireland as well, because the Airsoft Jungle came out during the same period of time, and he was just getting sick and tired of that. And it was only a matter of time he would start getting accused of something, you know. And that's it. He's, I've had enough. I'm out of here, you know. As I said, it's one of the few where the protagonist is male, is very predatory, and it's seen predominantly for, and obviously the femme fatale ones are seen for the female perspective, because obviously he manipulates Susan, and she's just, as I said, just a lonely housewife who just wants to belong to someone, become a mother. As you said, it's
Yeah,
in the 50s, it was considered shocking. And it was also a lot of materialism in there as well, you know. And you know, James Elroy, I believe he called he called the novel a masterpiece, and called it a masterpiece, a fantastic film in all its sexual creepiness, I think it was. So
all right,
obviously,
okay.
yeah. So the context, obviously, as well, also with the troubles with Trumbo as well, that didn't help Joseph Lily as well, you know.
Yeah, it's a it's a very weird film, I
It is,
think.
aye. It is. Obviously, the performances were great, as you said, Heflin, as you say, seen as a good guy in a lot of his films, you know. And it saw him working outside the box, you know, as in what he's good at, and you know, and he was a cop who used to sort of abuse his power, you know, control, and then you got a modern word, he was gaslighting, as I wrote, you know. As you
Mm,
said, Keys, she was good in her role, you know, and what I wrote down here about it was the Houston did help her because she was getting a bit sick and tired of all the sort of feminine roles that she got, because a lot of people will know her from playing Scarlett O'Hara's sister, Sue Ellen, is it, in Gone with the Wind. That's what
oh
she's
yeah,
going to
yeah,
be well known for, you know. So she wanted more challenging roles, and that's also what he got. The music, I think, plays a lot in it. What I liked about the Prowler was, I think I'm thinking the same movie. It opens up with no music and a guy whistling. Is that the one? Or am I thinking another one? No, forget that. That's a movie we might be reviewing shortly, in another episode. And you know, it's see if that this film was shocking at its time, and I think it's probably like an 18 at its time. You know, that type of thing. You know?
It's one of those things. It's what the I think it's one of the films that are sort of it's like what the production code was sort of brought in for in it. It's the sort of there's nothing that horrible happening in it or nothing
Yeah,
that nasty, but it's got that feel of like really subversive, really like I don't know, not pleasant characters and that sort of unseemly. It feels like such a prudish thing to say, but sort of like unseemly, like the way he is, the way he
yeah,
acts throughout it. But yeah, I don't know. It's one of the nastier ones, and like the ending as well. The final bit with the where the doctor, without
uh-huh,
giving too much away, it's just like I don't know. It's difficult because you're sort of you want to be on the side of the person he's on screen for most of the film, so you want
yeah,
to identify with him, but he's so unpleasant, and it's like what. Yeah, it's a difficult film to sort of like. I think you can recognize that
yeah,
it's really good,
yeah, yeah.
but like, yeah,
As you said, it's very atmospheric, brutally shot, you know, but it was tightly edited, and as I mentioned in my reviews, be it the podcast or written ones, music plays a big part of this. It's a very stylish movie. It's even intelligent movie as well, you know. And but obviously it shares a lot of themes of double indemnity, you know.
yeah,
And you know
and the postman always rings twice as well.
exactly. It shows a lot of Susan. She's very vulnerable, very open to Webb's manipulation as well. And I think also because a lot of social issues at the time, you know, the wedlock and that it was a lot of films didn't want to talk about that as well. And Arthur C. Miller, he was a DOP on this and seen as one of the sort of visual masters who created the visual style of uh, of
Film
film noir.
noir.
Yeah, yeah.
There's so many of those like John. There's so many cinematographers who are sort of credited as that though. There's like John Alton's the one I hear a lot.
Yeah,
He did like the big combo and like T-Man and Phantom Lady and all of those that with the sort of really sort of sharp angular lines and that. But
yeah,
like yeah, I've heard that name before. And James, I
yeah,
think is it James Wong Howe or someone else as well. But like
yeah.
yeah, I love the look of noir is so distinctive.
It is, yeah. And so there you have it, folks. That is the Prowler. Welcome back, folks, to the Chronicle Film Podcast, episode 52. And Nick, do you have one more film you like to chat about from Film Noir?
Yeah, I've got one more, and it's on the topic of underrated or underappreciated film noirs. I think this is a particularly relevant one. It's Michael Curtis's The Breaking Point, which is the second adaptation or the second like sort of in the sort of classic Hollywood era adaptation of the book To Have and Have Not, which is some might say it's like a fool's errand to try and adapt it when Howard Hawks had already done it with Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall. That version had like basically the only plot element it got from the Ernest Hemingway novel was that a character has a boat. This is a lot more faithful to the book, and it's yeah, it's a lot more noiry than To Have and Have Not is basically like most of Howard Hawks' films. It basically comes off as like a sort of just a good hang film. We all just hang out, we have a great time, sing songs. There's like insane chemistry between Lauren Bacall and Humphrey Bogart, but like in terms of plot, there's not that much there. It was very thin. Whereas The Breaking Point is just it's very heavy and it's got what I think is John Garfield's best performance of his whole career in it, and it's really great. So yeah, I mean the plot, such as it is, it's still not got much plot, but it's John Garfield is like he plays a guy who he's a fisherman and he rents out his boat. He rents out his boat to like rich people on holiday. He rents it out. It's all legit, but he's not making him much money, and he's really struggling to make ends meet when he gets cheated out of a bunch of money and he's sort of forced to sort of take less legal jobs on, including like transporting Chinese immigrants across the border, and like eventually getting drawn into a sort of robbery that he has to sort of be the getaway driver for. It's all sort of grounded by this performance from John Garfield, where it's like you just really feel the weight of the world on his shoulders as he's sort of moping around. Yeah, I mean, he's been in. John Garfield's an actor who I find quite interesting. Like he died quite young, so like he doesn't. There's not that many, he doesn't have that many films, But the ones he does have is like there's The Postman Always Rings Twice. There's Force of Evil, which is another great underrated noir.
Yeah.
And yeah, but he's just always, I think he's always very good. In this one especially, it's like he's just full of like this sort of self-loathing as he sort of gives up his ideals to sort of chase money. His wife is constantly telling him to like sell the boat and get another job, and he's just refusing, and he's just sort of sticking to his principles and stuff. But it always goes wrong. And yeah, is this one? Have you seen this one, Paul?
I haven't, but I know of it. You mean Patricia Neal,
Patricia Neal is amazing in it.
Roald Dahl's wife?
Yes, yeah. She's an interesting one in this. Is it's like it's sort of a theme of the films we've been talking about, where it's like not not femme fatales. I don't think we've really had a genuine femme fatale on this episode. I mean, Yvonne De Carlo and Criss Cross maybe fits the brief, but like
Yeah.
Patricia Neal in this is not a femme fatale. She's like the mistress of one of John Garfield's clients who initially is very standoffish with John Garfield and like looks down her nose at him, but when the tables turn and she's sort of left in the lurch, they sort of strike up a friendship, and it's quite nice. It's like there is a sort of romantic edge to their relationship, but like he's also like he's married and I don't think there's ever much. I mean, he's a bit of a sleaze, I guess, but you never really get the impression that he's really going to leave his wife. Yeah, and his wife's played by this actress called Phyllis Thaxter, who is like so humane. Like her whole performance like just pulls on your heartstrings the whole entire way through. She's so like what's the word? Like angst ridden about her husband. She's constantly worrying about him. There's good supporting cast members as well. There's Wallace Ford is like this plays this really seedy lawyer who's like John Garfield's main contact and like gets him into all this trouble. There's a guy called Juano Hernandez who is John Garfield's partner, and like the two of them are sort of like they're either side of him. You know, his partner's like that completely decent, and this lawyer is just Wallace Ford's lawyer is this horrible seedy guy who's just trying to tell him like, well, you can make loads of money doing this, and then like essentially like pulling like for his fighting over his soul. And yeah, it's not one that I hear talked about much in the sort of great film noirs, and maybe because it's not really in the city, it's not really spoke. It's
Yeah.
all set on this dock. It's another one that makes good use of like the location, but yeah, like it's all like there's a lot of location cinematography. Yeah, so it ends with this amazing shootout on the boat, which like obviously To Have and Have Not is famous for not being faithful to the book to the extent where like when John Huston made Key Largo with Humphrey
Yeah.
Bogart and Lauren Bacall again, he basically nicked the ending of the book of To Have and Have Not and just plonked it on the end of his adaptation of Key Largo. So if you take the ending of Key Largo and put it on the end of To Have and Have Not, you've basically got you've got some of the book of To Have and Have Not. Whereas the ending of the breaking point is really sort of gripping, and it ends with what I think might be like the most devastating final shot of all of film noir. It is horrific. The implications of it are horrific. I mean, it's like it's not obviously it's film noir, so it doesn't have a happy ending, but it's also not a traditional film noir, so it doesn't feel. I don't feel they felt that obligated to sort of do the sort of Hays Code thing of like making sure everyone sort of pays for their mistakes and stuff like that. But even with that being said, the final scene is just it's just so heartless. Very, very much recommend anyone who's like, likes film noir.
The director, he's a big pull. He's one of the directors of the golden age of Hollywood.
Well, yeah, he
And
did Casablanca, obviously, is his big one. But yeah, he did
Mildred Pierce,
Mildred Pierce is great as well, yeah.
Yankee Doodle Dandy, Angels with Dirty Faces, and he was sort of responsible bringing the sort of Luyero fling your swashbuckling type movies
Mm.
to
I
Hollywood,
think
and Adventures of Robin Hood, and is it Captain Blood?
yeah. Well, he was like I know he came from the silent era. And I
Yeah,
think he got in trouble. I can't remember one of the things. What there was he's kind of quite a controversial figure because I know there was a stunt involved in one of his films where I think some stunt people might have died, which
yeah,
is not great.
no,
Not at all. But like, yeah, I think this is what definitely one of his best films. I think. I
I
think
mean,
yeah, there's a quote from him saying where like he's tried to put all the art. He says he tries to put all the art into his pictures that the audience can stand.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's like, he doesn't, he never sort of he never draws attention to like the style so much. And I think there are like some directors, I think it's not necessarily a dig or like a criticism. There's some directors who really going all in on the sort of style of noir. Like, I think maybe like
mhm,
Orson Welles does it a lot with like,
yeah,
Touch of Evil and The Lady from Shanghai. They're very stylized. And this isn't stylized, but there is like you can tell that there's thought has gone into the sort of shot composition and stuff. There's like a lot of depth of field where there's stuff happening way at the back of the frame and stuff
yeah,
happening at the front. That yeah, there's the whole bit at the final sort of sequence. There's just this the guys with guns are sort of standing in the foreground. You just see that the guns are always there, And it's like there's a real sense of danger the whole way through. Yeah, no, it's a real good one. It's a real hidden gem, I think. Like, and there's not that many people talk about it, but there's not much. You don't really hear many people saying anything bad about it either. And I think Hemingway himself said it was the best adaptation of his work that he'd seen. Which,
yeah, he did. You wonder if this was made, say, maybe 10, 15 years after the Bacall and Bogart version. Could it have been a lot? It might have been better response from cinema goers back then. It reminds me of been a few years, well, about 15, 16 years ago when David Fincher made The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. He basically made it 2 years or so after the original Scandinavian one,
yeah,
and it just looked like Hollywood was just jumping the back of the tail of the success of that
yeah,
one. And you wonder, I know this is a few years later, but I think it was like 5, 6 years after.
yeah, roughly, yeah.
You
I think
you
I
you
know.
you wonder, was it a financial thing as well? Could they have got Bogart and Bacall to actually replay it again? I wonder.
I don't
Because
know. I don't think. I mean, I think there's a reason that it's not cool to have and have not.
yeah,
I think they're like. I think that film, Howard Hawks' film, is so like indelibly printed in people's minds now. You think to have and have not, you don't think Hemingway so much as you think of like Bogart and Bacall and that sort of like you know how to whistle, that scene.
yeah.
Like that's the first thing you think of, at least for me anyway. I think any time, I think if someone tried to make it today, I mean it would be mad, but like if someone tried to make it today, that would still the main point of contention would still be the main touchstone would still be Lauren Bacall and Humphrey Bogart. So like it's Matt like I'm a big Howard Hawks fan. But like it's a really bad adaptation.
Anything else you'd like to say about the film?
No, I think that might be it. Didn't have that much to say about this one. I just wanted to put it out there
No,
because
you
like
did
I
well.
mean
So yeah, have it, folks. That is your episode 52 of the Chronicle, your Noir special. And there's your lot, folks. That is your episode 52 of the Chronicle. Thank you very much for joining us. Obviously, these films are old school films. Maybe have a look at your local place to get your Blu-rays or your digital downloads. As we've mentioned, places like Eureka, Criterion, Arrow Video, Mubi, you name it. If you're in the US, look at some of the ones over there as well, like Kino Luba, to get these films. Some may be still public domain. Dave, thank you, Nick, for joining us. Would you like to tell the people where they can find you on social media and may find some of your reviews?
yeah, sure. So so I still write for People's Movies and
Okay.
Film Hounds. And yeah, you can find me on Twitter, still calling it Twitter, as I am D Bartlett, but I'm also on Blue Sky.
Okay, and as for myself and the People's Movies and the Chronicle Film Podcast, Facebook at the People's Movie, Instagrams we probably see a lot at the People's Movies, YouTube where this podcast will get uploaded to as well at the People's Movies.com, X Twitter at the People's Movie. We are now on Patreon, and Patreon obviously does help us out a lot, keeps the website running. The People's Movies, this is last week, Sunday the 23rd of November, celebrated its 17th birthday. So if you want to say get to the 18th or further on and keep us going, Patreon's the way to do it. All the links will be below the actual podcast or head over to the website. The podcast you will find in many of your popular sites to download your favourite podcasts, like Apple, Podbean, Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube, to name a few. Sometimes we'll continue the chat over the Chronicle Take 2. Stay tuned on social media and at the website for future info of the podcasts. Do sign up for the email newsletter, which you'll find a link over at the website. And that'll keep you posted on what we're posting at the website and also future episodes of the podcast. As I said, you can show your support for the Chronicle and the People's Movies with Buy Me a Coffee and at PayPal. Share the podcast on your social media with your friends and family. And if you're listening to one of those popular podcast sites, do give us a rating. Do support us on Patreon. We are a small podcast. We are a small independent website. Sharing and rating does help more people find the podcast and keep us this podcast running and the website running a lot longer. Nick, thank you very much for joining us. We need to do more of these old film episodes in the near future, maybe a few more Film Noir ones.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. And for you, the listeners, thank you very much for joining us. Until the next time, enjoy the
Uh,
movies.